This is an analysis from Alpha Business Media.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking at something that on the surface might just sound like a marketing discussion.
Maybe even a cultural one.
Exactly. But when you actually peel back the layers of the source material we have, it's a lesson in, well, hard economics. We're talking about market inefficiencies and a concept called geographic arbitrage.
It's a fascinating topic because it really challenges the conventional wisdom that's driving almost every boardroom in Kathmandu right now.
So what are we looking at?
We're breaking down a report called Branding Nepal, the Untapped Power of Maithili Bhojpuri. And the mission here is pretty clear, to figure out why major brands are failing to connect with millions of customers in the Terai region.
And how a linguistic shift might be the key to, well, the next decade of growth.
That's it.
And just to set the scene for you listening, if you're a strategist in Nepal, a CMO, you're probably feeling this very specific frustration. There's this sense that the digital landscape in Kathmandu, it's just become a total battlefield.
Battlefield is definitely the right word. It's a war of attrition at this point.
Right. You've got the e-commerce giants, FMCG, the banks, the ISPs. Everyone is fighting for the exact same pool of urban consumers. The source calls it a battle of diminishing returns. So let's unpack that. What's actually happening in Kathmandu?
Well, the source paints a picture of just extreme saturation because every major brand is targeting that same, that finite demographic in the capital. All the metrics are just moving in the wrong direction. We're seeing cost per click CPC and cost per acquisition CPA just skyrocketing.
So basically, brands are paying more and more money every single quarter.
Yeah.
Just to acquire customers who are getting harder to impress because they're just seeing ads 24/7.
Precisely. The efficiency is gone. The source says companies are trying to squeeze growth out of this completely tapped-out market. They're A/B testing in Lalitpur, tweaking ad copy by a tiny fraction of a percent.
Well, these minor optimizations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the authors argue that's a huge strategic mistake. They use this great analogy. It's like looking for your keys under the lamppost just because the light's better there.
Instead of looking in the dark where you actually drop them.
Right.
I love that. So we're optimizing for the light, not the opportunity. And that, I think, brings us to the core concept here. The keys aren't under the Kathmandu lamppost.
No, they're somewhere else entirely. And this is that aha moment of the analysis. It's the term you mentioned, geographic arbitrage.
Okay, so define that for us.
Right. So in economics, arbitrage usually means, exploiting a price difference of an asset between two markets. You buy low in one place, sell high in another.
But we're not talking about stocks or commodities here.
No, we're talking about attention. Consumer attention. The source argues that attention is the asset. And right now, there's a massive inefficiency in the price of that attention between Kathmandu and the Terai region.
Specifically cities like Janakpur, Burgunj.
Exactly. Biratnagar, the whole region.
Okay, so let's get into the numbers, because the source has this really clear hypothetical scenario. I think walking through the math makes it obvious why this is such a big deal.
Let's do it. So imagine you're an e-commerce company. In Kathmandu, because competition is so fierce, your cost per acquisition, it's high. The source puts it at around, say, NPR 800.
And rising.
And rising fast. Maybe up to NPR 1200.
Wow. Okay, so over 1,000 rupees just to get one customer in the door, that's steep.
It is. Now, you look at what you get back. The customer's lifetime value, or LTV. In Kathmandu, let's say that's maybe NPR 4,000. So your ratio is, what, 4 or 5 to 1? It's okay. It's a business.
But it's shrinking. The margins are getting squeezed.
Constantly. Now let's look at the Terai. Because there's so little competition for digital ad space in local languages there, the CPA just plummets. The source puts it at around NPR 300.
Wait, from 1,200 down to 300? That's a 75% discount on a customer?
It's a massive difference. Now, I know what the skeptics in the boardroom are thinking.
But they spend less.
Right. Their basket size is smaller. And that might be true today. Maybe their lifetime value starts lower, say at NPR 2,000 instead of 4,000.
But if you do that math, NPR 2,000 in value for a 300 rupee cost.
Your ratio is almost 7 to 1. It's already more profitable on a unit economics basis than Kathmandu is.
You're getting a better return on your investment from day one.
Even with a lower initial spend. And this is where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just about today's snapshot. It's about the trajectory.
You're not just buying the current value, you're buying the future potential.
That is the key. That's the whole arbitrage strategy. Growth in Kathmandu is incremental. It's slow. But in the Terai, it's exponential. Incomes are rising, digital adoption is surging.
So that customer you get today for 300 rupees, Their value isn't going to stay at 2,000.
No way. In 2 years, that same customer's value could be NPR 5,000. So you're buying the asset, the customer loyalty now, while it's cheap. You lock them in before the price appreciates.
Because once everyone else figures this out,
That NPR 300 CPA is gone. The arbitrage window closes.
it's a land grab. But if the math is so clear, why isn't everyone already doing it? The source argues it's not just about the numbers, it's a communication breakdown.
It's a language barrier that goes much deeper than just words. This is where we move from the spreadsheet to psychology. The source says it so clearly, language is a proxy for trust.
And we're not talking English versus Nepali, we're talking standard Nepali versus the local languages like Maithili and Bhojpuri.
Exactly. See, the assumption in Kathmandu is that because everyone understands standard Nepali, you can just market to them and it's efficient.
It's standardized.
But the source argues that in the Madhesh region, standard Nepali, it carries a lot of baggage.
Baggage. How so?
Well, it's seen as the language of the state. It's the language of the courthouse, the tax office, the administration.
Officialdom, that's the word they used. It
Yeah.
feels formal.
And distant. When a brand talks to you in the language of the courthouse, it feels like a transaction. It signals that the brand is an outsider. It builds a psychological wall.
And then you contrast that with Maithili and Bhojpuri, which the source calls the languages of the hearth.
It's such great phrasing. These are the languages of, lullabies, of marketplace haggling, of community stories. They carry implicit trust.
There was that great example they gave of the trust deficit. It made it so concrete. They compared two scenarios. Scenario A is a bank advertising a loan in perfect formal Nepali.
Right. And to someone in Jauncourt, that just feels like a cold legal document. It feels risky.
And scenario B is a fintech app that uses a local Maithili proverb about being careful with money.
And suddenly it's not a transaction. It feels like advice from a trusted neighbor.
Yeah.
That's the whole game. When brands use formal Nepali, they're speaking at the consumer.
But with Maithili or Bhojpuri, they're speaking to them.
And that tiny preposition at versus to is everything.
Okay, so we've got the economic arbitrage and the psychological trust gap. The next question is how to fix it. And I think this is where companies get it wrong. They think, easy, I'll just hire a translator.
And the source is very, very firm on this. That is the translation trap. This is not a translation problem. It's a structural problem.
Structural, why? If the words are correct, isn't that enough?
Because you can't translate culture from a desk in Kathmandu. You can translate words, sure. But true hyper-localization, it requires what the source calls decentralizing creative authority. Brands need teams on the ground in Janakpur, in Burgunj.
Not just a sales office, but a creative office. People making decisions.
Yes. You need native speakers who get the cultural zeitgeist, the local festivals, the slang, the memes. If your Maithili campaign has to be approved by a board in Kathmandu that doesn't speak the language, you're going to end up with something that just feels awkward.
Robotic.
Yeah, like when a dad tries to use teenage slang, it just makes everyone cringe.
But that sounds like a CEO's nightmare. You're asking them to just let go of the brand voice.
It is the ultimate CEO challenge. It's an organizational design problem, not a marketing one. The source says CEOs have to have the courage to trust regional teams. They have to approve campaigns they might not personally get.
I don't get the joke, but my team on the ground says it'll work, so let's run it.
That's the level of trust required. And it means looking at new metrics, too.
Yeah.
In the early days, you can't just obsess over click-through rates. You have to value community engagement.
Is the brand becoming part of the local conversation?
That's the real KPI. And for anyone thinking this is just a nice theory, the source points to a huge case study right next door.
India.
India, the India 1 versus India 23 concept.
I found this parallel really helpful for understanding the scale of this.
It's perfect. A few years ago, Indian startups were all focused on the English-speaking metros, Mumbai, Bangalore.
Right.
But then companies like Google, Flipkart, Zomato, they hit a ceiling, and they realized the next 500 million users, they had to go vernacular.
The vernacular web.
And it became this massive engine of growth. You had regional streaming services like Hoichoi for Bengali or Aha for Telugu, proving people will pay for content in their culture, in their language.
And the scale here is, it's kind of surprising. We underestimate how many people speak these languages in Nepal because the media is so Kathmandu-centric.
The source has this one stat that just wakes you up. The Maithili-speaking population in Nepal alone, it's larger than the entire population of Bhutan.
Wow.
Or the Maldives. It's a massive market block. It's not a niche. Ignoring it is like a European company deciding to just ignore, I don't know, Belgium. It's business negligence.
It really puts it in perspective. So, looking ahead, what does the source predict? How does this play out over the next few years?
Well, it predicts a divergence.
Right.
Over the next 36 months, we're going to see two types of companies emerge.
The winners and the losers, I'm guessing?
Pretty much, they call them the national laggards and the hyper-local leaders.
Okay, so who are the laggards?
They're the ones who will stick to Kathmandu optimization. They'll use, minimal translation, maybe a junior staffer, and they'll keep complaining that the Terra market isn't ready.
They'll blame the customer for their own failure to connect.
Exactly. And then you'll have the hyper-local leaders. They're the ones building those defensive moats we talked about. They'll win the Terra now, while the CPA is low.
And once you have that loyalty,
It becomes prohibitively expensive for anyone else to steal it. Once a family trusts a fintech app because it speaks their language, it's so hard for a generic brand to come in 5 years later and displace that.
there was also that quick note for policymakers, which I thought was smart.
Yes, suggesting tax credits for advertising in non-Nepali languages. The idea is to actually spur a creative economy in Madhesh, create jobs for writers, videographers.
So it's not just about marketing, it's about decentralizing the actual economy, stopping the brain drain to Kathmandu.
Precisely.
So, if we boil all this down for you, what does it mean? It seems like we're looking at this rare moment where the math and the morals actually line up.
That's a great way to put it. Usually their intention.
But here, you've got the cold, hard economic arbitrage on one side, low cost, high growth, and on the other, you have the emotional arbitrage, respecting a culture, bridging that trust deficit, and connecting with people on their own terms.
And that combination is just so powerful. But it requires action. The window is closing. These kinds of market inefficiencies, they eventually get corrected.
It really is a move now or miss out situation.
I want to leave everyone with the final warning from the source, because it's pretty provocative. It says that the companies that refuse to decentralize power and trust talent in Janakpur today.
They'll be writing case studies in 10 years.
They will, but not the good kind. They'll be writing case studies about why they missed Nepal's greatest market opportunity. They'll be analyzing their own irrelevance.
A sobering thought. If you're sitting in a boardroom in Kathmandu right now, maybe it's time to take a trip south and just listen. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Thank you.
We'll catch you on the next one.